الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. In the next few lectures of As-Sunnah and its explanation to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala, we come to what is the longest issue in the book. When he talked about the Usul of Al-Hadith, the Usul of As-Sunnah, the Usul of the Salafi people with the Salafi Aqeedah and Minhaj, he would mention something, but he wouldn't go too deep in it. But in this issue, he spent more time mentioning the details of this issue. It's because of the fitna that came as a result of this issue. And that is his refutation against the khawarij, one of the groups that constitute the groups of the source of innovation. They're one of the worst groups that the Prophet dealt with, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his companions dealt with. And we have a hadith about them. Their leader was Dhu al-Khuwaysira, who came and accused Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of not being fair and just when he divided the spoils of war, something that Imam Ahmad is going to mention in this part of his treatise. The fate that's for the Imam of the Muslims to give to people according to what he sees fit and how he sees fit. So he dealt with that. And he said there will come a group of people from this man, Dhu Khuwaysira, from his loins. They'll go in and out of the religion the way the arrow goes in and out of the game. And for that reason, some of the ulama of Islam, like the contemporary scholars Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, said that the khawarij were kuffar. People on the khariji way, they put them outside of Islam because of this hadith, and they make takdeeb of the Quran and the Sunnah. And they make halal the blood of the Muslims and so forth and so on. So the Nabi mentioned them. He also said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, al-khawarij kilabun nar. They are the dogs of the hellfire. They said anybody who fights them will get a reward. Will get a reward. So I'm all for fighting against the khawarij. I'm all for it. But with what is balanced, without going overboard, reading the room. There are individuals who claim they were for jihad and they were pushing jihad, famous people, and they were killed by the United States government. They were killed. And they killed more Muslims and caused more problems for Islam and the Muslims than they helped al-Islam. You can't even mention their names as a result of fear that when you mention their names, people get all riled up and bent out of shape. But their dawah is the dawah of the khawarij by the Lord of the Kaaba. But it's where our ummah is. Nonetheless, he mentioned a lot of issues concerning the khawarij. They are asl from the usul of innovation. So in this particular bab, and Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala went deep, and he mentioned a number of issues, more than any other aspect of the book. That is food for thought, to remember. When the door of khuruj against the Muslims, when it happened with Uthman ibn Affan, since that time to this day, it has not been closed. We've been dealing with this fitna of the khariji understanding and so forth and so on. So in terms of showing the significance of the issue, Imam Ahmad, in his book Usul Sunnah, he made the majority of what he spoke about in this book. He dealt with this issue in more details than any other book, than any other issue of Usul Sunnah, more than any other issue. And that's a dalil that he saw as being really serious. And he gave some itlaqat, some generalizations that I'm not going to even try to waste time to give conditions, because that's his madhab and that was his opinion, that whoever does this and this and that is a mubtadi'. And he didn't get into the details of that. If you did it with knowledge, you didn't do it with knowledge, as you're going to see, insha'Allah azza wa jal. So we come to the next point after dealing with the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how Imam Ahmed said that the Ashab al-Shura, they were the 5 people who Umar radiallahu anhu told the Muslims, after my death, these 5 people, you should make the mushawara between them. Who should be the Khalifa? He said all of them, yasrahu, all of them could have been the Imam and the Khalifa. After talking about leading the Muslims, he came to this issue. There's a connection. Last point was the point about how the companions took care of this thing about having a leader for the Muslims. And those leaders were the best of the people. And then he went into, and from the usul of the Sunnah is that we have to hear and we have to obey the ai''imma, the leaders. And we have to listen to and obey the Amirul Mu'mineen. Whether the Amirul Mu'mineen is a person of taqwa or a person who is making dhunub and ma'asi that the people know about. And that those who come into power and they take the khilafah, they become leaders because the people agree for them to be leaders, we have to listen to them. Or whether they got into the power because they overcame the people around them. This is a really important point. He went on to mention after that, rahimahullah ta'ala, and also hearing and obeying the one who fought against the people. They fought against them with the sword, and he conquered them until that person became the Khalifa, and he was named the Amirul Mu'mineen. The Amir al-Mu'mineen. So basically a few things here. Akhwani, and Imam Ahmed is talking about the leader of the Muslims. And if the leader of the Muslim, like during the time of Abu Bakr became the Khalifa, the leader of the Muslims, and everybody didn't choose and vote for him. Umar became the Khalifa, and he was the first one called the Amir al-Mu'mineen because Abu Bakr said, you are that leader. And then upon Umar dying, he said, choose these people from the Ashab of the Shura, and they choose who the leader is. Or the leader can come as a result of someone's the leader and someone fought against them and they overwhelmed him. And now they're in the position. If they get the position of authority and power, and Imam Ahmed is saying from the usul of the Sunnah, is that the Muslim should get under his authority and not fight against him by saying things like, you became the leader through the sword. You became the leader and someone else was better than you. You became the leader and you took it from your father, and so forth and so on. If he becomes the leader and it's clear that he's in charge, the Muslims should fall back. This issue of how to deal with the imams, we have extremes. We have extremes. We have those people who act and believe and they exist as if they're better than the companions, better than the Salaf and the ulama and the brave warriors of the Salaf who took these narrations and they submitted to them. And then we have the people who go overboard and be like, we have to love the leaders. And the leaders are the best thing since sliced bread. And when the leader's in control, we should just love everything that he does. And no, that's two extremes. Not making khuruj and fighting against the leader is one thing. We don't do that. We make dua for him. But getting on the minbar and praising the leaders is not from the way of the Salaf. Praising them is not from the way of the Salaf. Putting their pictures as our what do you call those, profile pictures? We don't have to do that. We have to stay in the middle. And then there's another issue that has always intrigued me, and that is we're in America and we're in Europe and we're living and we're tried, maftunun, living here. We don't have any Muslim leader over us, and yet we have young brothers who are fighting and going off and just really, really at each other. And who is our leader? And we're here. The fact that we don't have a Muslim leader over us doesn't prevent us from discussing and having the right position concerning the issue. But to this very day, the youngsters just started practicing. They're still arguing and fighting over this leader and that leader. Who's our leader? Who's our leader? Concerning Imam Ahmed's statement that we have to listen and we have to obey the leaders, we have dalil. And this is the real weird thing again. There are texts that are there. And then the person comes and he says, no, it's not like that. No, it's not like that. Like those hadith, and there are many where the Muslims used to be weak and they used to be oppressed, and they would come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and ask him to make dua and ask him to help to change the situation. And he would tell them to be patient. But the youngsters today, they say, if that happened to me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and you're going to make trouble for yourself and for others. That's why the first issue Imam Ahmed mentioned, and I repeat it to you again, the usul of the Sunnah to us is holding on to what the companions were upon and following their way. And this is what they dealt with, and this is how they dealt with the leaders who were over them, who were a problem. Why did Imam Ahmed say we have to obey the leaders? Because they are dalil, proof from the Quran and the Sunnah. Allah mentioned in the Quran, oh, you believe, obey Allah and obey His Messenger and those who have been put in authority over you. It's ayat of the Quran. Ati'ullaha wa ati'ur Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Obey Allah and His Messenger and those who are put in authority. The first people who have been put in authority over you, this ayah, let's talk about the leaders of the Muslims. Primarily, this is what it's talking about. Secondarily, it's talking about your mother, your father, your husband. It's talking about any and everybody who has authority over you. Oh, you believe, obey Allah unconditionally, obey His Messenger unconditionally, and obey those who have been put in authority over you conditionally. If they obey Allah and they tell you to obey Allah, you obey them. If they tell you to disobey Allah, you don't obey them. From that, the Prophet mentioned, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, alaykum as-sam'u wa ta'atu fi usrika wa yusrika wa manshatika wa makrahika wa athratin alayk. What was collected by Imam Muslim, he said to the Muslims, you have to listen and obey the leader. And what you hate, and you know, when things are difficult, things are awesome, you don't like it. Another hadith, he said, even if he had a raisin head, even if your leader became someone you don't like with the Arabs. And this was his example. He said, even if it's an Ethiopian slave with nappy head, raisin head, it's not possible for an Ethiopian slave to be the leader and the emir over free people. It's never going to happen. The slave, he has a sayyid. If he wants to make Umrah, Hajj, he has to ask his sayyid, can he make Umrah and Hajj? He has to listen to him. 3 people, their salat won't reach their necks. And one of them is the slave who was abd. He ran away from his master. He has to be inside of the of his master. Some people say, I'm not going to do that. Well, that's what the text said. But the point I want to make here is, it's not permissible for the slave to be the emir over people who are ahrar, they are free. But that's his way of telling the people something you really hate. You really hate. for this type of individual to be over, you have to listen to him, you have to obey him. And you also have to listen and obey the ruler, fi athratin alik, when the leader plays favoritism over you. He gives things to his family, he gives things to his son, he gives things to his relatives, and he doesn't give it to you. You can't make khuruj. That's a hadith. Should we sit and say, oh, we're going to be blind, the leader is doing this, but we say it didn't happen? It happened. But the Prophet prophesies. Again, as we mentioned in the Khutbatul Jum'ah, the non-Muslims tell us that there's a hurricane that's going to come and we have to vacate or die. We take it very seriously. Rasulullah told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the time is going to come when you're going to have leaders. They hate you and you hate them. You make dua against them, they make dua against you. They're going to pray favoritism. They said, what should we do? Should we not fight them, Ya Rasulullah? He said, no. As long as they establish the prayer, don't fight them. Be patient. That's what Umar told the man. He said, be patient when these things start to happen. It's going to come. Hadith is clear. So that's from why Imam Ahmed said what he said, rahimahullahu ta'ala. He went on to mention from the details of all of this stuff. So we have to have the bay'ah, and we have to listen to those who have been put in authority over us. We make dua for them, and we ask Allah to guide them, to help them, because if Allah does that, it'll help the slaves and it'll help our countries. Compromising this situation is a problem. The Salaf of this ummah, they used to say, being under the authority of an oppressive leader for 1,000 years is better than being in a situation where there is no leader at all. 1,000 years of Saddam Hussein, 1,000 years of Bashar Assad, that guy, 1,000 years, those people are a problem. And other than that, that's better than being without an emir for one night. Because when those people are in control, it's going to be a system. And people are going to be afraid of being robbers and going off and do it. They're going to respect. But when there's no leader at all, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. It's like in the house. Obey those in authority over you. The father is in authority over his family. If that father is not in the house, it's going to be problems. It's going to be challenges. That's the sunnah of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He went on to mention, rahimahullahu ta'ala, from what we do with these leaders, from the usul of the sunnah, is participating in the battles of jihad along with them, whether they're religious or irreligious. This is something that is operable and operative until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And it is ijma' between the scholars that the leader doesn't have to be like Umar. The leader doesn't have to be like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. The leader could be someone who has issues. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, rahimahullah ta'ala, has issues in his aqidah, but he helped the Muslims with his jihad. Someone who's against that aqidah that he was upon can't say, I'm not going to fight with him because the aqidah is not the aqidah of the Salaf. These leaders who we have today, things that they have, it's not for you to say they're not religious. It's not religious, I can't participate with them. It's going to be a bigger fitna. So we're going to do jihad with them, and we're going to fight with them. And that's operable and operative until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And it is never to be abandoned. Likewise, the leaders who divide the spoils of war and they do the punishments or the hudud, this will always be operative and everlasting. It is not permissible for anyone to rebuke them or to contend and to make niza', trying to take the leadership away from them. It's really important. Because as I mentioned, the khawarij, and we still have people like that today, even if the person is not really a khariji like that, but his actions, He doesn't pray behind the Muslim for whatever reason. He doesn't pray behind him because he knows something or he thinks something about him, whatever, so he refuses to pray behind him. No, we have to pray behind him. We have to participate with them in the jihad of al-Islam. One of the biggest oppressors in the religion of al-Islam historically is al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. He was a problem. He was a problem. But he spread al-Islam from Medina all the way to Sindh, to India. He did a lot to open up the futuhat of al-Islam. And he was a problem. He used to threaten the companions. He would threaten the women from the companions. He killed some of the companions, but they prayed behind him and they performed jihad with him. Radiyallahu anhu. So the way of the Salaf and the companions is not to pose and make a problem for the one who is clearly the leader of the Muslims, if he is religious or if he is irreligious. So as I mentioned, Abdullah ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with, and other than him, pray behind al-Hajjaj. Abdullah ibn Abbas, pray behind al-Hajjaj. When Abdullah ibn Abbas saw Abdullah ibn Zubair, who Hajjaj cut his head off. He cut his head off. Abu Bakr's grandson, the son of Abdullah, the son of Zubair ibn Awam, and Asma, cut his head off and crucified him, had him hanging up like this so that people who came into Mecca would look at him and say, don't mess with Hajjaj, don't be from the khawarij. When Abdullah ibn Abbas came and he saw his body, he said, oh, Abdullah ibn Zubair, this is what I was warning you from. This is what I was warning you from. And he was crying at the situation. So Abdullah ibn Abbas prayed behind al-Zubair, behind al-Hajjaj and these people. You'll find when the news comes on in the Muslim countries on Friday and these leaders of the Muslims today are in the Prophet's Masjid or in Al-Azhar's Masjid or whatever Masjid. The people watching that and say, they're just showing, they're not religious, manufactured. It's not for you to say that. It's not for you to say that. It's for us. It's for us to do what Allah made us responsible for. And that is not to compromise this issue. When this thing is compromised, the end result is going to be problematic for our ummah. The end result. Abdullah bin Mas'ud and others from the companions, they prayed behind a companion by the name of Al-Walid ibn Uqba. He was the brother of Uthman from his mother. And Uthman put him in a position of leadership over Al-Medina. And he drank khamr. And he used to come to the Fajr and he was intoxicated, radiyallahu anhu. Radiyallahu anhu, Al-Walid ibn Uqba. When he prayed for rakat, because he was drunk, the people said, and made inkar upon the leader openly. So you can make inkar upon the leader openly if he did a mistake that was open, and your inkar is not going to lead to a bigger fitna. We got to be balanced. Some people are saying you can't make inkar against the leader. No matter what. Companions made inkar against a number of the leaders of al-Islam. But they didn't make khuruj. And they didn't make inkar when that inkar was going to make a bigger problem. They made inkar on him. What are you doing? You're drinking. He said to those people, Hal azidukum? You want me to do more rakat? I did 4. You want me to do 6 or 8? We'll do the iqamah again and we'll do more rakat. Because they say, hey, you're drunk. What are you doing? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, Ma zidna min ziyadatika mundh al-yawm. We've been in this edition. You want to give us more? We've just been dealing with the more from you all day since we've been dealing. And then they told Uthman about what he did. And Uthman removed them from that position. He didn't flog them. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. It was his brother. But the point is, those companions prayed behind a man who drank khamr. And we say, may Allah be pleased with him. We say, may Allah be pleased with him. So, whether the Muslim leader is religious or irreligious, we have to listen to him. And I give this example. We're married in this masjid. All of us are married. And there's no one who is perfect in this masjid. No one here is perfect. Our wives and our children are under our authority. You're the imam. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a dalil that you're the imam, no one should leave the salah in a man's house when he's in his own sultan. So if it's time to pray, no one should sit in your chair. This is your chair. Someone come into the house and he could see one of these two sides is going to be the chair of the, the sahibul bayt. Don't sit in a man's chair. And then when it's time to pray, don't you go up front and lead him in the prayer, because that's his sultan. Okay, no problem. Your wife, my wife, your children, my children, there may be some things they don't like, they don't want that we're doing. And then when we come and we go to eat in his house, in the brother's house, his wife and kids come to the door and say, hey, we want you to do this and this to him, and he's doing it. We're going to say, what's wrong with you? We're going to make a su'al istifham of a tawbih. Are you lost your mind? What's wrong? You don't make inkar like that. I mean, what's wrong with you? And then the wife and the children start exposing what they don't like. That's khawarij. No one here will allow that. No one. No one. Okay, no problem, no problem. We are supposed to do the same thing with the leaders of the Muslims. And I remind you of that effort of Ali ibn Abi Talib when the man was trying to make it appear as if Ali was the problem, and this is why he had all these fitna and all these mashakil. He said, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, they didn't have all these problems. He said, they didn't have those problems because they were the umara, they were the emir over people like me. I know how to respect the emir. I know how to deal with the emir. I'm the emir over people like you. You're a mushawish. You're a mushad. You're a person who make trouble. You're always giving people trouble. So those companions knew how to deal with the imam and the emirs. And they never disrespected them. Never. Not out of fear of them, but out of fear of fitna. And Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah ta'ala, again, Ikhwani, is mentioning these things, this issue of participating in the jihad, the issue of allowing the leader to distribute the spoils of war, allowing the leader to do the hudud, chop people's hands off stuff. He's mentioned these as examples. He didn't exhaust everything. We, as Muslims today, we have to follow the leaders of the Muslims when they say Arafat is tomorrow. Ramadan begins tomorrow. If you're making, if you are an individual who's performing Hajj, you're performing Hajj. Ramadan is when the leaders of that place say it's tomorrow. Hajj starts tomorrow. The day of a Tarwiyah. It starts the 8th with what they say. Not with what you say and what you think. And we saw this with our own eyes, 4 eyes. We saw this, that people would go over there and stay in their rooms when the salat was being made, the salat of a jama'ah. And then they would go after that prayer because they didn't want to pray behind the leaders because they were kuffar over there. No, man. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? So Arafat, Mina, all of these, and Imam Ahmed could have mentioned these things like this, but he didn't try to exhaust everything. He's showing those big things. It's not for every Amr, Bakr, and Zayd to do the hudud. There would be confusion. There would be confusion. I mean, confusion. You know, this earthquake, this tornado, this hurricane, and all of the wind that blew like that, that's confusion, that state, that thing that we see going on in society. If there's no leader and everyone is claiming that he's just a cowboy, that's what you can imagine life is going to be like for the Muslims. No stability. So when the Salaf said it's better to have 1,000 years under oppressive leader, doesn't mean they want an oppressive leader. Doesn't mean that. It means that's far less fitna than not having any leader at all. Like they used to say, I prefer to swear by Allah lying than to swear by other than Allah. It's not him saying he wants to swear by Allah lying, but swearing by Allah lying is a kabira from the kaba'ir. Swearing by other than Allah is shirkun min kufr. That's what they were trying to do. The qiyas al-awla. And Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah ta'ala, when he mentioned from the issues that are only for the Imam, he said also, handing over your zakat to the rulers. This is permissible. And it is always operable and in effect. Whoever gives his charity to them, then that would be enough for him. His obligation would have been fulfilled, whether that leader is religious or sinful. So we have to give our zakat. One of the 5 pillars of Islam. You have to give your zakat. If you as an individual want to give your zakat to someone you know from the community, you can do that between you and Allah. Nobody else has anything to do with that. You have someone, you know, it's miskin, it's a family, you give them zakat. Not your mother, not your father, not your sister, but distant relatives, whoever you want to give the zakat to. You don't need the imam, the amir for that. But you don't know anyone. You don't have time to go looking for people. You got zakat al-fitr, you will zakat of your money. You give it to the leader of the Muslims and you let him take care of it. And if you do that, it's off of you. The khawarij said, no, we don't pray behind them. And the khawarij will come and they will ask the person, what do you believe about this? And what do you think about that? And what do you think about this? What do you think? If he doesn't measure up, for an example, if he says, get in the line and pray, I'm not answering those questions, they won't pray behind him. What do you mean? You got to pray behind them. You have to give them your zakat. And if you give them the zakat, khalas, you did what was upon you. If they steal your zakat, they steal it. You're not responsible for that. The obligation of that zakat is off of your shoulders. That's just how it is. So also handing over the charity to them, this is permissible and is always operable and operative to Yawm al-Qiyamah. Whoever gives the charity to them, and that would suffice him. There are a lot of adillah for that. That's what the companions used to do. Plus Allah mentioned a number of ayahs of the Quran. Oh, you believe, it doesn't harm you. Those who go astray, as long as you are guided aright. So the leader doing what he does, he's astray. He's doing whatever he does. But you're guided aright and you gave him the zakat. It's not on you. لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. Allah mentioned another ayah of the Quran when he said, بل الإنسان على نفسه بصير. Everybody, every soul will be a proof against his own soul that he did or didn't do. That he did or he didn't do. Abdullah ibn Abbas used this ayah against the khawarij, telling them, hey, I know I gave the zakat. No, what you're saying doesn't count. Allah mentioned in the Quran as well, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ رَهِينًا. Every single soul will be held up and questioned for what it did. You gave your zakat to that man, khalas. You gave your zakat to the masjid, you gave whatever. It's not, you're finished. Now, do we have a responsibility to have some fiqh? Have some responsibility to have some fiqh. You have a responsibility. You're not going to give zakat to someone and you're going to give him money and you know he's going to misuse it. We're not going to la tu'tu sufaha as-sufaha amwalakum. Don't give the foolish people money. You're going to use your brain, but other than the way of the khawarij. Allah Ta'ala also mentioned this very, very important, and it's a refutation against them as it relates to prayer and everything else. When he described the bad leaders, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said about them, yusalluna lakum, فَإِنْ أَصَابُوا فَلَكُمْ وَإِنْ أَخْطَأُوا فَلَكُمْ وَعَلَيْهِمْ. There are going to be some bad leaders who are going to come. They're going to pray and they're going to lead you in the prayer. He said if they get the prayer right, فَلَكُمْ, it's for all of you, for them and you. He had wudu, he did for rakat, all of that stuff. Even with his evil, he prayed. He'll get the reward. Salat is off his shoulder. He prayed. You'll get the reward and he'll get the reward. But if they mess up, then it is for you and it's against them. The imam doesn't have wudu. Is it your job to come, knock on his shoulder, hey, you made wudu? It's not your job. Can you know that again, if you can imagine the hurricane, like those trees that were blowing that I saw, the trees, the wind was blowing. The imam gets ready to pray. You have wudu. You taking riba. And there's no nihaya. And then after he answered the question, someone else comes in. Hey, you got wudu? Can you imagine? That's our religion. Are you doing birrul walidain? Are you doing birrul walidain? So whatever the issue is in the heads of the people, the khawarij, whatever the issue in your head, do you do this? Do you do that? Do you do this? Do you do that? And on to what has no end to it. We wind up not even praying. Not our religion. It doesn't even make sense. I'm telling you, I saw with my own eyes in the UK 25 years ago, we had brothers like this running around in the community. Going to the Muslims, telling the Muslims, don't give your money as zakat to the Masjid, give it to us. And if you don't give it to us, we're going to burn your place down, like the mafiosos. They was mafia. They was Don Corleone mafiosos. You have to pay these people protection money, and this is how it is with the Khawarij. To this very day, they hurt the Muslims more than they benefit the Muslims. They hurt the Muslims. So as it relates to praying behind them, we pray behind them. We give them the money. And Allah will judge them. Why do we do that? That's what the text said, and that's what the companions understood, and that's what they did. Radwanullah alayhim ajma'in. Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned, and performing the Jummah prayer behind the ruler is from the As-Sunnah of the Sunnah. And also behind anyone that the ruler appoints to be his na'ib. He's his deputy. He put him there. We pray the Jummah prayer behind him. We pray the Eid prayer behind him. As for the prayer you want to do between you and yourself and Allah, no problem. You don't have to be behind anybody. But when there is a ruler, Mecca, Medina, Baytul Maqdis, the big Jami' of Masjid al-Aqsa and these of Al-Azhar and all these places, you can't make takfir of the people and then establish a Jummah on your own. He went on to mention, rahimahullah ta'ala, performing the Jummah prayer behind the ruler and behind whoever he appoints. This is permissible and it is perfect, is a perfect act. And it consists of 2 rakat. How many rakat is Jummah? 2 rakat. Why did he say that? Because the Khawarij, man, they would be in the thing and they would pray and then get up and pray again. They would get up and pray again because that prayer didn't count. They were just doing that salat for tuqya, to protect themselves. Because there is a hadith that the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the leaders will delay the salah out of its time. They said, what should we do? He said, pray the prayer at the right time in your homes, and then go out and pray with them behind them, so that you don't get in trouble. So they don't want to get in trouble. So they'll pray Jummah, but they feel that Jummah is not even accepted. So they get up again and they pray 2 more rak'ah. He said, whoever repeats these 2 prayers behind this imam, he is an innovator, just like that. And Imam Ahmed, a scholar of the Sunnah, he didn't make a ta'meem like that, like whoever does this issue of this. But in these issues of Aqidah, he did. And I will say, generalizations are usually a problem if there's no dalil connected to him, but he's speaking to a mentality. Who's going to pray behind the Imam of Jummah and then get up again and pray 2 rak'ats? Who's going to do that? Except someone who is with the khariji mentality. He went on to mention, rahimahullah ta'ala, the one who does this is an innovator, and he's one who abandons the narrations, and he is an oppressor and an opposer of the Sunnah. He receives no reward whatsoever from the excellence of his being in attendance to the first Jummah. The first Jummah that he prayed, he was there. Malaika wrote his name down, and Imam Ahmed said no, he doesn't get any reward. Why? Because he's an innovator. The innovator's deeds are rejected by Allah. That's what he's referring to. His deeds are rejected by Allah. That you believe when you pray behind this imam, you're there, you don't get any of the fadl of praying behind him, because you're an innovator. Allah has put that hijab between the mubtadi' and his innovations. He's not going to make tawbah. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He's making taqarrub ila Allah, getting close to Allah. He went on to mention, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that if he does not accept and hold that the prayer is to be observed behind the leaders, whomsoever they may be, the righteous from amongst them, as well as the sinful from amongst them, then he is an innovator. Last thing we want to read here today, ikhwani, inshallah, he says, so the sunnah, the minhaj that's correct, the aqidah that's correct, the suluk that the companions and the salaf were upon, he says, so the sunnah is that he prays 2 rak'ats with them, and whoever repeats them is an innovator. And that he acknowledges that they are perfect and complete, not having any doubt in his heart regarding that. One more time, I'll end by saying, up until this point, who doesn't have any sins from amongst us? Somebody show me who doesn't have sins. And that's why the khawarij, they have this ghurur. Ghurur is like, it's like a state in which a person looks at himself as being bigger and better than his reality. Nah, it's not arrogance, it's like deceit. You're deceiving yourself. Ghurur is a good word for ghurur. Ghurur is when you look and your nose is up at everybody else. And you can't see you got boogers in your nose. You have hair in your own nose. Like you holding your nose like that. You got hair in your nose. You're not perfect. Huh? Nah, man, it's a word, brother. Ghurur. It's like conceit. You think you're Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned in the Quran, وَلَا يُغُرَّنَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغُرُورِ. Don't let that conceit, don't let that thing get you. Don't let that get you. وَغَرَّتْكُمْ الْأَمَانِي حَتَّى جَاءَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ وَغَرَّكُمْ بِاللَّهِ الْغُرُورِ. Then people, al-amani is when you just wishful thinking. You think the way you are. They use a phrase today, they call them the gatekeepers of Hollywood, the gatekeepers of the society, those people controlling. I believe that. They're gatekeepers. If you go against them, they're going to get you. And your billions of dollars and stuff like that, they're going to get you. If you go against the status quo about Israel and this, they're going to get you. We have some Muslims who believe and who think that they're the gatekeepers. Christians who think they're the gatekeepers. Yahud think they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones who allow people into the kingdom of Allah, into Jannah, and into Allah's Rahmah and Maghfirah. And there are Muslims who are like that. Horror. And I say, I don't apologize, and I don't hesitate. We have to be on the way of the Salaf. And I don't apologize. We have to be Salafi, meaning the Kitab and the Sunnah, the way the companions understood it. Bite my tongue about that. But the way of the Salaf is the truth. But every Salafi is not on the truth. The way of Islam is the truth. But not every Muslim is showing the truth. So gharur. I should have got that word. It's like conceit though. Self-amazement, that's what it is. Al-ijab is a better word, self-amazement. He said 3 things will destroy you. 3 things. And one of those things is being impressed with yourself. They're from the muhlikat. It will destroy you. Look at me. A'udhu billah. Gotta be in the middle. Concerning this last issue as well, ikhwani, there's a prohibition. The Prophet mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, la tusallu salatan fi yawmin marratain. Don't pray the same prayer twice in the same day. Prohibition. He says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, la salata maktuba fi yawmin marratain. You should not pray the obligatory prayer twice in the same day. So you pray Jummah behind a man and then you pray Jummah again. What are you doing? Jummah is wajib. Eid is wajib. You pray it one time. Now, that's ijma from the scholars. You pray one time, the prayer once. But if you have a niyat to pray a different prayer, nafil, this is permissible. But we're talking about the prohibition of what Allah's messenger, he stopped us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from doing what the khawarij did. Pray Jummah and then get up and pray 2 rakats after that. Or whatever prayer, and then you pray after. And to this very day, it's very common in the UK. I never heard of it here in America, but in the UK, with some of these masjids, 2 masjids, 2 groups of people, they don't pray the wajib prayer in Mecca and Medina. They don't pray the wajib prayer behind the imams of Mecca and Medina. They go to the masjid as a group after, and they miss all of the prayers. And by missing the prayers, they miss the salat of janazah as well. Every day for 2 weeks. They won't start Ramadan when Saudi Arabia starts Ramadan. They won't start because they believe Wahhabis, they don't look at the moon correctly, they're drinking, this, that. And this is not me bigging up Saudi Arabia, but they are responsible for the Haramain. Whether we like it, we don't like it. Whether we like it, we don't like it. So if they said to the people, you need this visa, you can't do this, you can't do that, we got to listen to those people. We got to listen to them. It's as simple as that. No, we're not listening to them. They're the leaders of the Muslims. They said, COVID, you can't come to this place without getting a thing. I don't want to take that shot. Okay, don't take the shot, but don't go. And be easy with that. That your need is with Allah. Lastly, I just want to make this point. As I said, we have to be in the middle. The more things are going to come up with Imam Ahmed as it relates to the leaders of the Muslims. The Nabi told us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Iyakum wa abwab sultan. Beware of going to the door of the leader. He warned you. It's going to be on your deen. It's going to be a problem. He told people, don't try to be a leader over people because it's going to be nadama, yom al-qiyamah. He said a lot of stuff. We make dua for all the Muslim leaders. We encourage people to obey and to listen to the Muslim leaders. We want good for the Muslim leaders. That's our responsibility. But that doesn't mean that you can't make inkar and say this is not right, this is not right, this is not right, without making fitna. Without making fitna. Nor does it mean that we go overboard and we say some of the stuff that we're hearing today and we're seeing today from some people who go overboard in this issue of listening to and obeying the rulers. Tawheed is everything this leader does. What? Come on now. Relax. So these are the points we wanted to mention today. There are a lot of other points. I thought maybe we just make the talkhis of it and this. I said, nah, I think it's better that we hear everything that Imam Ahmed said concerning the Muslim rulers and the leaders. Because this is a mushkila in our community today. This is a mushkila. You're in your masjid, and you're going to have people in your masjid who are fixated on the leaders and they're against the leaders. We say, brother, you are leaders well in your own house. Establish al-Islam in your own house. Allah will establish Islam in the earth. Establish al-Islam in our local masjid. Allah established al-Islam in the earth. We want to become fixated with these leaders, but we get the leaders who are similar to us. And that's a fact. If Umar al-Khattab was the leader over the Muslims right now, we'll be getting hit over the head with his stick. We'll be getting hit on our shoulders with his stick. As you are, your leaders will be like that. That's a hadith, but it's not authentic. Not authentic. A statement of the setter. The way you are is going to determine the kind of leaders that you're going to have. So don't make khuruj over the leaders, and always remember that example. We are the leaders in our own homes, and we're going to tolerate and not tolerate our family dealing with what they perceive that we're doing right or wrong. We're not going to tolerate them dealing with that any way they want to. Well, you have someone over you as the leader when you're living in a Muslim land, so you can't deal with them anyway. Okay, my brothers, if you brothers have any questions, inshallah, you can put your questions forward. Or any comments, anything like that, ahlan wa sahlan. اتفضل يا شيخ. Yeah, I experienced in a lot of masajid that I've been to, especially in Africa, after the prayer, they do a community dhikr and things like that. All of those things are from the innovations of al-Islam, and they shouldn't be done. The innovation shouldn't be done. Anybody else? Oh. So, so the brother, the brother from Tampa, Taymur, is a young brother who's learning the qira'at of the Quran, and he's giving dawah, and he's organizing dawah up and down the state of Florida. May Allah reward him. And we allowed him to lead the prayer in Isha, I think 2 or 3 times, maybe 2 times, I think. And in both situations, he said, I'm going to read this qira'ah. And he prepared the people and he read those recitations twice. First time, he caught everybody off guard because the wives and the children were upstairs and the whole prayer took 20 minutes, something like that. And it wasn't good for our community because we're not used to that and, you know, all of that. So the next time I said to him, don't leave the salat that long and read the regular recitation. Although the qira'at, we don't have a big deal because we have a lot of Moroccans here. Moroccans, from the regular people, they know their different recitations. But anyway, he did that again. And he made the qunut, the dua after the ruku' that the Prophet used to do for Fajr, for Dhuhr, for Asr, for Maghrib, and for Salat al-Isha to address an issue that the Muslims were dealing with. So what he did was from the Sunnah. But should he have done it in our community? I think he should have asked, because when you do things that the people are not used to, it'd be an issue. May Allah reward him. And in our community, we didn't have anyone who stand up and made khuruj and said, what are you doing? Look, we didn't have that. People were patient and the necessary people talked to him. Any more questions, Ikhwani?
And if you come in the street, women will not going outside at all.
And it happened a few times. It happened in Iraq when Saddam was taken out. It happened in Libya when Gaddafi was taken out. Gaddafi and Saddam are two people who have kufr. Scholars said they were kuffar, but they held the reins. It's not permissible for a non-Muslim leader to be over Muslims. We have to make khuruj against them if we have the ability. But if you don't have the ability, you can't do that. You can't do that. So it's something that the Muslim tasted and something that they've seen. And with this Rabi al-Arabi, this Arab Spring, and all of this stuff like that, if you just look at all of the Muslim countries, we have our challenges now, have our issues. But if those leaders were not there, only Allah knows. Like that hurricane, you saw that wind, that hurricane. And that's not me supporting those leaders. No, it's just a reality. Just like you and me. If the father is not in that house, left that house just to the mother. Everybody here who has children, imagine you are not there with your wife at all, and your wife is raising your children, just her. They say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. And that's what's going to happen. Everybody will be a witness to that. That father, that leader, that imam has to be there, because he just gives a look at everybody and they get in control. And even if he has been trouble with some of the kids' challenges, it's not like what his wife is going to have. They will run over that lady all by themselves. May Allah Azza wa Jal guide us and guide our leaders. And may Allah Azza wa Jal make Islah and cause us to have leaders who want to make the best for Islam. I just want to remind you, brothers, there is a thing that these Zionists bombed those people's hospital recently. Did you people see that? They bombed the hospital and killed those people and burnt them alive. And these people are complicit in this stuff. These people. So may Allah make it easy for all of us.